Isn't it always tragic when you hear that someone ended up dead? Isn't it more tragic when the culprit is never found and the family of the victim never gets the closure that they deserve? Well, today we're talking about one of those cases. Today we're talking about the unsolved case of Iris Tyson. The reason why I decided to focus on Iris' case is because of the little to no coverage that her case has gotten. And I believe it's only fair to spread the word about her case and simply maybe start a conversation, maybe make people research about Iris more and, you know, get any coverage about this case so the family could get as much help as possible. So, a little bit about the victim so we could understand who she was, how she was perceived by her family and peers, and humanize her a little bit. So, Iris, a 23-year-old woman, was an only child, but her family was big, her having a lot of aunts, uncles, and cousins. She was loved by everyone, and people said that she had a magnetic personality. Think they meant that she was very energetic and attracted people to her. Iris adored singing and never shied away from entertaining people with her singing or just entertaining people in general. Iris at the time of her going missing was employed, but she always wanted to become a veterinarian. She also loved her cat, Yum Yum, like her own daughter, which I feel like a lot of people could really relate. Iris was someone who preferred being at home over going outside with her friends or going on trips. You could even call her a homebody. Iris and one of her friends were planning on going on a trip to Florida Keys, but Iris cancelled on the trip after she realized that she wouldn't want to be away from her family for so long. From a little bit of digging that I did, I found there's a Facebook group dedicated to her memory, and it's still very active to this day, even if this case is 10 years old. And some of her cousins have made tributes on YouTube with her best photos and just simply saying how much they miss her. This is honestly enough to show that her family does love her, does miss her, and that they do want to get justice for her to allow Iris to finally be put to rest. It's really heartbreaking that her family has not found that closure yet. So, let's get into the meat of this whole thing. Let's get into the whole case itself. So, the day of the disappearance was Mother's Day, May 8th, 2011. The location that this took place in was South Philadelphia, and from reports this happened around 1 p.m. So, as most people, when Mother's Day come around, Iris wanted to go get her mother something nice for Mother's Day. The gift was going to be a Mother's Day card. Iris told her father her plan, and he happily agreed with keeping a secret from Kelly. Sadly, before Iris could slip away, Kelly caught her and asked where she was going. Kelly was very interested in what her daughter was about to do, but Iris was very vague and simply said that she was going to the grocery store and will be back in a little bit. That was the last thing that Iris told her family before disappearing. Seeing as this happened a lot of times, her family had never no reason to suspect that something might happen. She usually took the pathway on Oregon Avenue, which was only a few blocks away from where they lived. They had no reason to think that something bad might have happened on that very day. Ironically, so the day was beautiful, as if trying to mask the tragedy that is going to happen not too long after. Of course, after hours passed and Iris was not back, her family started to get really worried. It was around 3 p.m. when this happened. Iris was a responsible person, and she had made plans to be back and have dinner with her mother. And seeing as they were very close, it was strange that she wasn't keeping her promise. By 6 p.m., her family was frantic, and they filed a missing persons report. They feared that something happened to Iris, as they reported the disappearance of the daughter to the Philadelphia Police Department. Sadly, like in many other cases, police didn't do much initially. When adults usually disappear, the police does not give as much attention to the case as they probably should. And because of that, chances are that a lot of information was lost because there was no initial help from the police. The police said to the family that the person who disappeared was an adult and that they could have simply left on their own or that they're doing something without telling the family. And that's usually what happens in cases like these. At times, police takes even weeks before taking an adult's missing case seriously. And sometimes, for the police to take a case seriously, there needs to be a body to be found, which is the case for this case. Well, after realizing that the police wasn't going to really do anything for the family, Iris' family and friends got to work trying to search for the missing woman. Family and friends went around posting missing person posters, and their family drove around the neighborhood streets in search of their missing daughter. Sadly, everything was in vain, and they found no trace of the poor girl. People who knew Iris knew that she would never go missing without telling her family or friends about her whereabouts. She was a good and diligent person who was very close to her family and had no history of trying to run away from home. She was especially close with her mother, Kelly, as I've stated so before. Iris' parents, Joe and Kelly, did everything they could to try and spread awareness about the disappearance of their daughter. They took interviews with several reporters, but those interviews were never aired alive. Joe and Kelly were frustrated by the lack of the cooperation from the police and lack of news report. After a week of relentless searching for Iris, the family received a call that no family wants to get. The police reported that a body was found in an overgrown grassy Point Breeze lot on a Sunday morning. The police say that Iris died from blunt force trauma to the head, which was ruled out to be a homicide. Joe went to identify the body and confirmed that it's Iris based on the butterfly tattoo that the body had. The body was found by someone who was collecting bottles near an abandoned area. When the family and friends heard that, they said confidently that Iris was not the type of person that would go to places like that. She was a responsible and a clever young woman who knew to avoid places like that. Her family and friends were sure that she was abducted and brought there by force. The coroner's office determined that Iris died from blunt force to the head, as stated before, and even when her body was found with her pants being removed, there was no sign of sexual assault or a robbery. As of right now, detectives are not sure about the motives or reason behind this murder. This case has left a lot of questions in the minds of the policemen. A spokesperson of the police force said that there were many questions left unanswered. They didn't know if the murder was committed in the overgrown lot or if it happened somewhere else and the body was simply dropped off at the location. Police say that they believe Iris' body was dropped off there hours after her disappearance, meaning that if the police did actually take this case seriously at the beginning, the body could have been found sooner, or maybe even alive still, or there would have been more proof of who could have committed this crime. To say the least, it was almost too much for the family to handle, knowing that their daughter was so close to home without them knowing that or being able to help. Seeing as where she was found, it was, I believe, 2 miles from the house, maybe closer, but it was around the same neighborhood. Because of the police lack of initial involvement and concern about Iris's missing status, they were forced to hurry by trying to understand what happened and create a timeline. So, based on the witness report, Iris was heading towards the Oregon Plaza shopping center. There are no reports of her ever arriving there. Last she has been seen at the intersection of the 4th and Rittner. As protocol, the police interviewed the family to try and figure out if anyone might have a motive to kill Iris. But their family and friends were confused and nobody came to mind. Iris was known as a very sweet person who was generally beloved by everyone. It seemed like an impossible thought to them that anyone would want to murder Iris. Iris also didn't seem to know anyone in the area where she was found dead. There was generally deserted too, as most homes were abandoned. It's still a mystery to the detectives on why Iris was even there in the first place. Sadly, like many other cases, Iris' case didn't get much publicity when it first happened. Not even when her body was found did the reporters find this case interesting enough to write anything about it. That reduced the family's chance to get the word around about the tragedy that struck them and to maybe catch the killer. Like any other family, the Tyson family was desperate for any information, and in September of that year, they started to offer a $2,000 reward to anyone who was able to provide any sort of information about the case. But nobody came forward. In a last-ditch effort, the family raised the reward money for any information to $3,500 in October, but that also didn't get any attention and nobody sent any information. Kelly went to the press while addressing the murderer. She explained that they took her daughter and best friend away, but that they were willing to forgive them if they came out and allowed the family to find closure. Yet that still didn't get the family anywhere. In 2017, reporters interviewed Joe, and the man says that they still haven't healed, the time hadn't healed the wounds of Iris' murder. The family thinks about her every single day, and they hope that Iris will get the justice she deserves one day. Of course, if you have any information about Iris's murder, I will leave phone numbers in the description. Please do not prank call this number. This is a serious issue that should be taken seriously, and I will say it now. If you think that it's funny to prank call lines like that or try to give fake hope to families, you're a bad person. So don't do it, okay? Alright. Now, my opinions about this case. So, Iris was clearly a very good person who didn't deserve this. She had a loving family and a bright future for her. She was kind and generally beloved. A truly good person. It's rare to meet people like that nowadays, and it's a tragedy that we lost her. Her family is still active on the Facebook group, Missing or Disappearance. It's clear that the family loved Iris, and it hurt to them that the killer couldn't be caught, that she still hasn't been put to rest. I partially blame the police for their lack of involvement at the beginning. It's sad, but it's how most of the adults going missing cases are being handled. If the police would have listened to the family originally, they might have caught the killer or at least found the body sooner. All I can hope is that the family does find justice one of these days and that they get the closure they deserve and that, Iris can finally rest in peace. Same for her family, because they need they need to know who did this, so they would be able to finally be able to move on. I'll also link the articles I used to write this in the description if you want to go read them yourselves. And of course, I do encourage to search up more information about this case yourself, and of course spread this video or the articles I've linked about this case so more people could find out about this case, and maybe someone who does know something would finally come out, or at least to have this case get a little bit of publicity that it does deserve, because it really did not get any attention, and it's honestly horrible. Thank you so much for tuning in, for watching, and if you have any cases that you wish to recommend for me to do, leave them in the comment below. I'm very, very eager to try and simply research more cases and hopefully spread awareness about them. So yeah, thank you for watching. Do subscribe if you like this content, leave a like, leave a comment about your thoughts and all of that jazz. And yeah, have a good day.